How are you? Today is an awesome day. Today is Lag BaOmer. Now you may not know the mysticism behind Lag BaOmer. First of all, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Rabbi Zevi Weinberg. I've written about 20, if you want to call it, translations or paraphrase translation, a book on Tanya, actually a couple of books. It's all available on my website, academyoflife.org or kabbalahwisdom.org. And thank God I've had numerous radio shows and a lot of social media outlets. And this is what I do. I teach Chassidus. Thank God my family has been in this business for a long time. My father, Rabbi Shalom Weinberg, is quite well known, many books. Grandfather, Rabbi Yosef Weinberg. Of course, he had the schus of doing the Tanya on the radio and lessons in Tanya, which became a classic. And so the idea of teaching Chassidus, but mainly I think of the ability, perhaps it's the Levi gene in us, to take the concept and translate it into what it really means for the practical bottom line thing. That's something that perhaps I've inherited a little bit. And let's speak about two things. The first thing is, what is so great about today and what does it teach us? And the second thing is, and this is particularly for Jewish women. Let me share with you a story. My grandfather was brought to the Rebbe many, many years ago. Everybody knows about the Chabad Jewish Women's Organization, and Chabad ladies are extraordinary. What they do for the Rebbe, for Hashem, is beyond belief. At least we men, we get some of the attention, but the women, it's all from the heart. They give their lives, their time, so much just to help another Yid. It's extraordinary. However, there was actually a big plan. And the plan was that the Rebbe called my grandfather and he said to him that we are the generation that is the reincarnation of the generation that left Egypt. And we know that we are the ones that will go into Moshiach. The Rebbe, I don't know if you know this, but was a supreme Kabbalist. And many things he did were actually based on Kabbalah, or certainly using Kabbalah for practical matters. And the Rebbe said to my grandfather that Hashem gave a gift to the women. Because remember, it's a reincarnation of the generation that left Mitzrayim. And in that generation, the women excelled. One of the things they excelled in is they didn't worship the horrible golden calf. So Hashem decided to give them a gift, that in this generation their husbands would listen to them. In other words, women have a veto power, as any friend of mine. He became a Bat Shuvah, but he went to a very preppy Bostonian school. And so some of his quote-unquote liberal, they think they're progressive, friends said, "Oh, you guys are Jews and you're so patriarchal." So he said, "So you've never actually been to a Jewish home before, have you?" They say the joke that a kid comes home from a school play and his mother says, "Oh, you look so happy. What part did you get?" So he says, "I got the Jewish husband." So she got furious. She says, "You go back, you tell those people you want a speaking part." So anyway, if you're Jewish, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So be that as it may, the fact of the matter is that Hashem gave this veto power. He gave this tremendous, it's a gift that he gave them. But there's something much, much deeper going on here, much deeper. The time of Moshiach is actually a feminine era. Everything has a masculine giver and feminine receiver dynamic. So in the world of falsehood, what seems to be greater is the giver. But in the world of truth, what is actually the essence is the receiver. And one of the ways we see this quite clearly is, let's say in the union, men may contribute, but women will nurture, right? And that's really the hallmark of a man, which is a very positive thing. It's a contributor, hard workers, they want to do, they want to save. But the woman is the one that takes that work and she feeds and she nurtures and she raises the essence of the family. She creates. And so if you want to call it, one is the creative power and one is creation itself. And so as things work Kabbalistically, so to say, the lower something is, the higher it is. Because who has the power to create? Only God. And so while I may be able to give and make something in my image, or something like me, like the seed is always, it has a kernel, a DNA of the tree, but the ability to take that seed and turn it into a tree actually comes from the ground. The ground has this magical, infinite power from Hashem. So ironically, so to say, in the giver-receiver dynamic, it's not the giver that has the most power, it's the receiver, because Hashem wants unity. He wants it to be male-female. He wants it to be giver-receiver. But he wants, ultimately, the effect, because that's the greatest thing that we have. That's the greatest pride that we have. So let's say my wife and I have a child. That's the greatest pride that we have, is a child. But at the end of the day, who's the one that has the child? The woman. Who's the one that creates more? The woman. And then where does creative power come from? So it's true it comes from the union, but ultimately it's invested, ironically, more in the earth and the woman than it is in the seed, right? So the receiver is sourced in the highest level. And the reason this is very important is because as we enter the world of truth, everything flips on its head. Suddenly that which seems less is actually connected to infinity. Because that's really the world of truth. It's the world of infinity. We are all receivers from Hashem. And Hashem is infinite. So allowing ourselves to be the receiver from Hashem allows us to give birth infinitely. I don't like to blow my trumpet, but it's just an example, so I'm going to use it. You know, I got, I don't know what the right word is, but I got the idea, inspired to start a blog. Okay, so at that time, just going back, it was just an email list. And I thought to myself, what do I know already? 10 concepts, I'll put out 10 concepts, okay. But somehow, magically, this very day, I'm not exactly sure how it happens, I've put out over 60,000 blogs. I must be the only person that puts out more than there are readers. Now, I'm using this, I can say it humbly, because it really, in a way, doesn't come from me. You know, the Rebbe says that you can write, and sometimes you see it comes from somewhere else. So I can't take any ego. You know, if I worked hard for something, I can say, wow, I'm so amazing, I did this. But if it's something that really just comes through you, you can't really take much credit. So it doesn't really provide me with ego, because I can't take ego. It's like, it's just get an inspiration in 1 second. But I want you to understand the concept that if I did 60,000 blogs, and you go to my website and just go down, you'll see them. But if I did that, it had to come from somewhere. So I was the receiver, and Hashem is pulsating information. And obviously, as mentioned, I have a great love of translating and of sharing. So it works out very well with my personality. And now, thank God, I have a blog and various different platforms which I push out information. So we are the receiver of infinity. That's a tremendous concept, to infinitely be able to get new insights. And that's really where we're all heading. Now, getting back to the subject that we were speaking about. So, the ladies of today have a very important role. Because if Moshiach is about us all being receivers, and the Rebbe says we are the generation, our generation corresponding to the Rebbe himself, who was a Malchus, where Malchus connected to infinity, and we become infinite birthers of more and more spirituality and more divine wisdom. If that's the case, then women are the ultimate paradigm, and they are the ones that bring Mashiach. So for women to bring Mashiach, what they need to do is, we know that everything that happens is a result of the present. The future is a result of the present. Many, many times the Rebbe speaks about this. And our avodas Hashem, our service of Hashem, has to mirror the future. And one of the things that will happen in the future, as we have now, is women will teach Torah, because the Torah will come to each person. It says, "La yilmedu ish es achiv," nobody will teach one another. "Ki kulam yedu oisi," for they will all know me. So Hashem's relationship with each one of us will be personal, and the insights and the inspiration will be infinite. Like it says, every tzaddik will sit, and there will be a chuppah of fire, and everybody will be nichva. Everybody will, that's literal translations like will melt, but it means that everybody will be inspired from the Shekhinah, from the information that comes to us. And this is happening as we speak. I mean, it was literally unfathomable in all of Jewish history. I mean, you go to Chabad.org, and there are many women that are teaching very beautiful insights. And you have men that are very happy. As long as I'm seeking truth, I don't care who the truth comes from. If it's something inspirational, I'd love to hear it. And so I think that's what's really critical, in fact, I'm quite sure, is that women, as the Rebbe says very clearly, and today being Lag BaOmer, the time of the receiving of the inner Torah, and women are more connected to the feminine spirit for that intuition, to that sensitivity to Chassidus, understanding, because Chassidus is really all about growth. The Baal Shem Tov, who was a reincarnation of Saadia Gaon, they both said the world is about growth. And the Baal Shem Tov innovated the concept that growth is infinite, right? Everything's Hashgacha Pratis. Hashem is telling you something. Certainly everything you learn, certainly everything from Chassidus is all about growth. And women are very into growth. Not to say men are not, but women certainly are. And so therefore, you have a duty to study Chassidus and to continuously grow. And so I want to bless each and every one of you with the, first of all, Menuchas HaNefesh. Because in order to study, we have to, they call it the alpha frequency. We have to be a little bit calm, because when we're nervous, it's very hard. So may Hashem bring Mashiach this very moment. May we have all of our needs in complete safety. And until that moment, let us really undertake, at the very minimum, is to study the Tanya of the day. There are many, many apps, many ways you can do it. I go to Chabad.org. But to study the Tanya, especially with lessons in Tanya, there's Chayenu. We must understand that the study of Chassidus, the integration of Chassidus, is a critical thing. If I receive requests, I teach a mimer every day, and I could record it, and I could share it, and I'd be very happy to do it. But we know, the Rebbe says very clearly, that it was the merit of the righteous women that basically brought about the redemption from Egypt. And particularly, and there's no words that can overstate this, we're in a time, let's be very frank about it, a great crisis. And we have to do tshuva, because as Jews we understand that Hashem expects of us, and we have obligations. I want to share with you, I shared this, my friend Mendy Hanan did, I'm not sure if he ever publicized it, but he interviewed me on the subject, question and answer about tznius. So the Rebbe says in a very famous talk, it's an extraordinary talk, I think it was a Chaf Bei Shvat talk, many women are familiar with it, but it's all about Shiras Dvaira. He says, why did they choose the Shira of Dvaira for the Haftarah? They could have chosen anything. And the Rebbe says that Dvaira HaNeviah did two things which show us exactly the schus, what women are doing to bring Mashiach. This is what you're doing. Remember, what you're doing cosmically affects the Yid, is the switch, the light switch. Hashem is directly connected to you. And if you do it, you switch on the light for the world. Number one, She sewed wicks for the Mishkan, Shabbos candles that women do, and last but not least, which is for a bizarre reason a great challenge in our time, maybe it's just the exposure of the internet and the pornography and the slowly but surely despicable, debased description of women, which objectifies women instead of seeing them in their godly, sanctified light. And the mitzvah of tznius, very famous. Vaira Neviah was under the palm tree for the mitzvah of tznius. So quite simply speaking, obviously Chassidus, the study of Chassidus, is critical. And this gives us the strength to beat our Yetzer Hara. But what is the Yetzer Hara of today? Every generation has its Yetzer Hara. What is the Yetzer Hara of today? Well, everybody likes to not be ashamed of themselves. And obviously to women, the way you dress is in a way kind of, to a man a car, a woman is the way she dresses. So it's perhaps self-expression, how you look. And so when the society becomes sick and debased and reprehensible, guided by the most bizarre sickos, who's creating a fashion show? Some nut. So you have a choice. And the obvious choice is to see yourself for who you are, which is a Yid. And a Yid, the daughter of the king, has a dress code. But what you're doing is not a small thing. It's a choice. And as it says in the Tanya brings it down, it says in Kabbalah, that any time you beat your Yetzer Hara, a light shines from one end of the universe to the other. That's from all of heaven to earth. So you totally impact reality just by dressing tznius, just by doing the right thing. And so what is tshuva? Tshuva is in 1 second you transform yourself and you bring Moshiach. So it doesn't mean you have to forever and ever, but this very second, make a firm resolution that you understand that your dressing tznius forever will bring Mashiach. And that, in Mitzvah Hashem, in your role model and your study of Chassidus and the Shabbos candles, certainly this is the environment that Hashem wants, an environment of peace, an environment of love, an environment of holiness, of kedusha, of sanctity, of the royalty of Malchus. May we see Mashiach with our very own eyes this very moment.